I call Kim Leadbeater.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. I beg to move that leave be given to bring in a bill to make provision about licences issued to new drivers for the period of 6 months after the issuing of the licence, for the purpose of increasing safety for road users and for connected purposes. Mr Deputy Speaker, since I was elected in 2021, road safety has been one of my top priorities as the Member of Parliament for Batley and Spen. It's an issue which is frequently raised with me by concerned constituents. Speeding drivers, high-performance rental vehicles, off-road motorbikes and quad bikes, inconsiderate and dangerous parking and reckless driving blight our towns and villages. And not long after my election, our community was shocked by a tragic road traffic incident on Whiteley Road in Hetmondwike, in which a much-loved local woman lost her life. Our thoughts remain with her family and friends. I've therefore worked closely with the excellent Batley and Spen neighbourhood policing team, local councillors and Alison Lowe, the West Yorkshire Deputy Mayor for Policing and Crime, to support the Vision Zero strategy to eliminate fatal collisions on our roads. It's an ambitious target, but one which other regions and countries have shown is possible with the right measures and resourcing. But it requires a concerted effort to get there. Because despite all the positive road safety advances made in recent decades, from the installation of seatbelts and airbags to drink-drive testing, speed limits, speed cameras and MOTs, it is a tragic and horrifying fact that in Great Britain in 2022, there were 29,742 individuals killed or seriously injured on our roads. I am sure you will agree with me, Mr Deputy Speaker, that that is a startling statistic. And we must never forget that behind that statistic, there are thousands of families across the country grieving and going through unimaginable pain. Lives changed forever and families torn apart by tragic and often avoidable collisions. Indeed, I was inspired to bring this bill forward following a meeting between myself and colleagues with Dr Ian Greenwood, who 15 years ago tragically lost his 12-year-old daughter, Alice, in a horrific crash involving a young, inexperienced driver. The 18-year-old driver was racing 4 of his friends at night time on a rural road when they crashed into the car carrying Ian's 2 children and their mother. Her sister and mum were seriously injured and Alice was killed. The 18-year-old driver and a 16-year-old passenger were also killed. 3 young lives lost. In the face of such enormous personal grief, Ian has steadfastly and courageously campaigned for road safety reform, including the introduction of graduated driving licences. Sadly, Ian is not alone. On BBC Breakfast this morning, we heard from Sam Robinson, the mother of Billy, who was in the passenger seat of a packed, overcrowded car with 7 of his teenage friends when it crashed on the way to a birthday party. Billy, as well as the driver, tragically lost their lives. The consequences of that awful day will last forever. Ian and Sam's stories are heartbreaking. I know how painful their grief is, and I hope that we can remember them and many others today. Mr Deputy Speaker, this bill is not about taking away young people's freedom or fun. It's about trying to save their lives. By giving them the opportunity to build their experience and confidence during the first 6 months of driving after passing their test, we can try and ensure that they have a happy lifetime of driving and the future that they deserve. Road fatalities and serious injuries are not inevitable. Our roads can and must be safer. As the Transport Secretary himself said in March this year, despite Britain having some of the safest roads in the world, it is a reality that the levels of serious injury and road deaths remain too high. And there are many ways that we can and should look at improving road safety. This bill focuses on one important area of significance: new and often young drivers who have just passed their test. Because in 2022, around 1/5 of all those killed or seriously injured on our roads were a result of collisions involving cars driven by a young driver. Many of us will remember becoming new drivers, or just about, the excitement of passing our test, the independence, the freedom, the feeling of growing up. But what about the inexperience, the nervousness, the underlying lack of confidence, or sometimes the overconfidence? We've had a few lessons on local roads that we probably already know quite well. We've read the highway code back to front, we've learnt all the road signs, we've mastered the dreaded parallel parking, and then completed a 40-minute practical test before excitedly being presented with our full licence for life. You want to celebrate with your mates, maybe with a road trip, or perhaps you offer to be the designated driver on a night out. But you are driving in a variety of conditions without the support or guidance of an instructor or experienced driver. I'm sure we can all see the problem here. The danger is obvious. It's hardly surprising, therefore, that according to the Department for Transport, the most common contributory factors when a young driver is involved in fatal or serious collisions compared with vehicles driven by drivers of other ages were driver failed to look properly, followed by loss of control, exceeding speed limit, and learner or inexperienced driver. The AA has also found that 71% of fatal collisions involving young drivers were on rural roads. Roads where the driver is often unfamiliar with single lanes and blind corners, roads where experience would instill caution, but currently driving tests and lessons may have failed to give the necessary experience. All of this is reflected in the research produced by ALA insurance brokers in 2017, which found that almost 28% of drivers aged 25 to 34 admitted to being involved in a crash in their first year of driving. This is where I believe we can take immediate action to increase safety on our roads. The bill I'm presenting today would place restrictions on newly qualified drivers for the first 6 months immediately after they pass their test, following consultation. During this time, substantial evidence shows that drivers are statistically much more likely to be involved in a collision, often with devastating consequences. Other countries which have successfully introduced graduated driving licences have included zero alcohol consumption for newly qualified drivers, as well as restrictions on the number of passengers in the car and on nighttime driving, with exemptions obviously for work, medical and emergency reasons. Additional options to consider are the inclusion of rural roads, motorways or dual carriageways as part of the driving test, a requirement during driving lessons that a driver gains experience on different roads and in different conditions, or consideration of the engine sizes new drivers are permitted to drive within the first few months of passing their tests. We should consult widely in this country, including with young drivers themselves, who I have to say, the ones I've spoken to, have said they would actually welcome some of these changes. And we've got to look to other countries and their successful implementation of graduated driving licences. For example, in New Zealand, their graduated driving licence scheme has led to a 23% reduction in car collision injuries for 15 to 19-year-olds and a 12% reduction for 20 to 24-year-olds. We should be looking to countries such as New Zealand, as well as Canada, Sweden and Australia, and learning from best practice. I'm pleased that both the AA and the RAC are fully supporting this bill today, and that graduated driving licences more broadly are also supported by the road safety charity BRAKE, the Association of British Insurers, Project Edward, and the Parliamentary Advisory Council for Transport Safety. Indeed, Edmund King, President of the AA, recently said to BBC Breakfast that a 6-month graduated driving licence is a very small price to pay, and in that 6 months the drivers can get much more experience on the road. I therefore strongly believe that this proposal will not only have a very direct effect at reducing the contributing factors to road collisions, but will also, most importantly, act as a reminder to all novice drivers, actually regardless of age, that during their first few months driving on the road, they should take additional caution and take steps to gradually build their confidence and experience on different road types in different conditions and times of day. Mr Deputy Speaker, I hope members across the House will consider this proposal seriously and work with me ahead of second reading to ensure the measures within this bill are proportionate, evidence-led, and the evidence is clear, and effective at significantly reducing road traffic collisions. Finally, Mr Deputy Speaker, I would like to place on record my personal thanks to Ian Greenwood, who I mentioned earlier, whose devastating personal experience prompted his extensive research and campaigning on this issue, and which has assisted me throughout. I hope members will agree that this relatively small measure will be highly effective and in the years to come only lead us to question...
Order. I'm terribly sorry. The hint was in the 10-minute rule bill and we've hit 10 minutes. So this would be the opportunity if anybody wishes to oppose the bill to make a speech. I've had no indication of anybody wishing to do so and I see none, so I will now pose the question. The question is that the honourable member have leave to bring in the bill. As many of that say aye. Aye. On the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Who will prepare and bring in the bill?
Tim Lawton, Alicia Cairns, Edward Timson, Holly Lynch, Lillian Greenwood, Barry Sherman, Nash Shah, Paulette Hamilton and myself, Mr Deputy Speaker.
Kim Leadbeater.
Motor Vehicles, Driving Licences, New Drivers Bill.
Second reading, what day?
Friday the 17th of May.
Friday the 17th of May.